Welcome to Reality of the Rose with your host, Natalie Sprink.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 201 of Reality of the Rose. I'm your host, Natalie Sprink. Thank you. Welcome for joining me again. Before we get into this week's episode, if you have not listened to my celebratory 200th episode with my daughter Allie, please press pause, go back and listen to that episode first. We recorded my episode 200 that we recorded my 200th episode together while we were on a trip to Vermont and Maine. And about mid-trip, we recorded the podcast. And so we talk a little bit about Vermont and Maine and our experiences and sort of just what we've been doing. And then we do the second half of the podcast is us sort of exchanging questions back and forth to each other about different things in our lives. She asked me like a lot of questions about podcasts and favorite things from the past. And then we have some rapid fire questions at the end, but it's a lot of fun and funny and had a good time recording it. But you learn a little bit more about me, learn a little bit more about her, and it was just a lot of fun. So yeah, check that out. So I am here tonight because, or today, whenever you happen to be listening to this, I have to cover 3 episodes of Golden Bachelor. That's exhausting to watch. I had in mind to record after 2, but then it was last week while we were on a trip. And since we were recording the 200th episode and I knew probably not much was happening, I thought, oh, screw it. I'll just record a recap after 3 episodes. And I honestly wish I didn't even have to recap these 3 episodes. I am just really disenchanted with this season, bad. And maybe it's gotten in my head right now. And now I'm just like tunnel vision with seeing only negative about this show. Mel, to me, is just an absolute horrible lead, continues to be. I don't think he is, I've not grown to like him anymore. In fact, I get more annoyed by him the more I watch it. I know he's whatever, 65, but he just looks like an old man. He can't walk. On the last episode, he was escorting Carol out and they were walking down just a small little hill to usher her into her SUV, and the guy could barely make it down the hill. I mean, I know he played football and everything, but God, he just looks so old. He has no lips. He doesn't, like I said last time I recapped, he doesn't speak in anything longer than like 5-word sentences. He just seems like he has no appeal whatsoever. It makes me not convinced that any of these women actually have any feelings for him. I feel like I feel like Nicole's being the only genuine one who's like, I don't really want to date him. I just want to, expose this Instagram account I'm trying to build. Usually you're supposed to hate those people. And yeah, they did a good job of editing her to make you be like, God, I can't believe she said that. When in reality, it was really the only thing that really jazzed this show up. It was sort of her take on things. And, spoiler alert, as she leaves tonight, when he sent her home, she was like, well, I think it's just like meant to be. And I'm sure there's other things now in my future. Maybe you'll even make me your new Golden Bachelorette. But, which is maybe what they're all thinking, but she's the only one that says it, to be honest. But just saying, any of you, I'm not going to be watching. I think I decided that tonight. I think. I really think I decided, though, that I will not be watching any more Golden seasons. I can't. I don't know. It just doesn't have it. I think it was a one-hit wonder. It was just something new for us all to look forward to. And now look at what happened there. It just came out in the news now. I guess Gary is writing a memoir about himself, and he told in the press, he said that Teresa should be worried about what he's exposing about her in the book. And I guess Teresa responded, and let me find it here. So she says, out of respect for his family, I decided a long time ago to not say anything, to take the high road and to keep what happened between us. So I can't tell you how disappointed I am that Gary has decided to talk about me in such a disparaging way. Nothing he has said about me or how our conversations went is accurate or happened in the way he is describing it. I am not sure if Gary has a bad memory or if he just thought it sound more dramatic with how he revised it. It makes me really sad to know how empty and trapped he felt prior to our wedding. I wish he had just been honest with me. I really believed he loved me, but clearly he had me fooled. His behavior behind closed doors makes a lot more sense now. And then he, I guess, says, that he admitted he learned Teresa's true intentions after speaking with some of the other 22 competitors. Several women shared a seemingly small detail that loomed large in my mind. While at the mansion, Teresa read How to Win the Bachelor. How dare she? Ooh, that is really some tea. Boy, I bet she's going to lose sponsorships now. Who cares? Who cares if she read the book? That's Game of Roses. Bachelor Clues and Pace Case wrote that book and from Game of Roses. And so I'm sure they're very happy to hear this. And I'm very sure Teresa will be on their show soon. He wrote that after watching the show and seeing Teresa's argument with fellow competitor Kathy, he regretted his decision to give Teresa a rose rather than Kathy. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it just seems very petty. And then it kind of really taints and takes the luster away from this franchise anyway, because that season was the one that made us all go, oh, this is so heartwarming and so endearing. And look, at when you're over 60, you can still find love and you can still have fun. You can still talk about sex. You can still feel young, blah, blah, blah. And, also I saw that recently Susan and Kathy went on, I forget, it might've been Almost Famous podcast. And they were actually joking about how they cast everyone before they knew who the Bachelor was. And when they found out it was Gary, they were like, damn. And how they basically had to act really excited about him. And I guess they were kind of just joking about how like behind the scenes things aren't what they seem when we watch them on camera, and that they definitely, either one of them, were not into Gary at all. And so it's no different. It's no different than the regular Bachelor or Bachelorette. It really is not. And not that that's what's tainting this season. What's tainting this season is definitely Mel. But I just, I don't know. I can't. I'm just so not interested. So tonight I had to watch, before I'm recording this episode, I had to watch the last 2 episodes. And again, I was just bored. I just wanted it to be over. I was fast forwarding little stuff that I didn't care about. And I'm definitely going to finish this season out because I'm just going to, but I really do not think I'm going to be watching The Golden Bachelor again. So yeah, that being said, let's get into it. After I'm done recapping this a little, I think I'm going to talk about a few other shows that I am currently watching. One is the new season of Love is Blind. I also have gotten into Gilmore Girls, and I talked about that with Allie on our last episode, and she got me into that. And I started Monster on Netflix. That's the Ed Gein story, the Ryan Murphy limited series. Started that last night. Whoa, that's wild. So I'm going to quickly recap The Bachelor, the last 3 episodes. So if you are interested in that, but are interested in hearing me talk about some of those other shows, maybe fast forward about, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, because I don't think I'm going to talk any longer than that. And we'll get into some of that other stuff a little bit. All right, so let's start back. This was episode 2. And I'm kind of just going to go through my notes here and hit any highlights I think I want to talk about any further. But this was after Nicole made out with Mel in in the pool. So some of the girls confront her about that. I mean, doesn't really end up anything. Debbie gets the one-on-one, but the group date is first. And this was actually a little funny. Comedian Jared Freed, which from what I understand, he has a podcast and he has a really, really funny take on Golden Bachelor and Bachelor in general, from what I understand. I learned that on TikTok and some of the comments on a few of my posts about the Golden Bachelor. But I've not ever listened to him, so I probably should do that. But he's like the host and he's a comedian. So it's going to be a roast, and roasts are always funny. And, Mel is very easy to roast because of what he said about not wanting women over 60. And Jared Freed, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, roasts him as well about that. So at this time, Amy is still on. I was not a fan of Amy, but I made a note that basically in her roast, she didn't understand the meaning of the word roast and was just basically complaining about stuff. And I was like, why? I don't think you understand the assignment. But Mel ended up picking Nicole as the best roaster, so they got to go to dinner together. And this was a weird interaction, and I don't know if it was the edit or not, but she was asking him about his ex-wife and the divorce. And every time he started to talk, she would interrupt him. And then he would start to say something, and then she would just finish his sentences, which you all know how much I love that in a person. But she just kept doing that. And I actually wanted to hear him talk because he was, at this point, had been very vague about his ex-wife. He said something so tonight, then I'll talk about this later, but I guess I can cover it now. He said there was no infidelity, but she found someone else. And when we had our introduction to Mel at the very beginning, he said the same thing. He was like, I was divorced, whatever it was, 5 years ago. She found someone else for her. But how else were we supposed to take that except that it was infidelity? So what? They're married and she meets somebody but says, I am interested in this guy. I'm not going to cheat on you with him, but let's get divorced so I can be with him. And I mean, he has left out very many details. I would love to know more about that. I hope that comes out because it's so vague and makes no sense. But anyway, I thought he would give more if she would let him freaking at least talk, but we learn nothing about him. He gives her the rose. Then Debbie gets the date. She's never been married. He picks her up. They learn how to cook an omelet. And so they're cooking. This is a cooking date. And it's this awkward thing where they got their arms around each other the whole time they're cooking. You can't cook like that. And no one believes you can. So just cook and then make out. Don't cook with your arms around. That's just not realistic, people. Back at the mansion, we have Kathy and Susan show up and they crash and they're going to have this little slumber party with all the other girls. Oh God. I've been yawning talking about it. They play Never Have I Ever. Kathy and Susan give advice to some of the women, which I thought was weird because there's only been one season of The Bachelor, Golden Bachelor, which, yes, they were on, but they just admitted that they didn't even like Gary. So I don't know how serious you want to take their advice. We have Cindy struggling with sharing Mel. Mel gives Debbie the rose on their date. I noted he's so boring, it adds nothing. But then Kathy and Susan bring vibrators for all the girls, which, adds a little bit of something. Already we're at the cocktail party. Amy's getting on my nerves again. I had a note here. I know America probably loves Amy, but I just didn't enjoy her. At this point, I made a note that I'm actually not hating Nicole, that she's actually adding something. And I feel like I'm kind of going to stick with that because I mean, obviously she wasn't there for the right reasons, but who cares? I can see why with him, my word. He was kissing a couple of the women, and I made a note that he had lipstick all over his non-existent lips the whole night from these women, and they didn't wipe it off, and it felt very icky to me. I didn't like that. I just didn't like that. Uh, Cindy Smitten. I do love Cindy. I love her hair, her eyes with her hair and her hair color. I just think she's stunning. The rose ceremony, 4 will be going home. The roses go to Cindy, Peg, Roxanne, Jerry, Cheryl, Robin, and Carol, Amy, Monica, and 2 other women who I didn't notate went home. Okay, so then this is last week's show. We get the day card. The one-on-one's going to go to Peg. They went to the OC fair, and basically they played all the games and went on the rides, and she laughed and screamed a lot. And that was the gist of the fair. Funny note, if you listen to Game of Roses, Clues happened to be at the OC fair when they were filming, and he's been talking about whether he will be able to make it into the background of one of the shots. And sure enough, he did. I spotted him right away. So funny. Okay, so then Peg gives her PTC. She reveals that she was cheated on, and that's why she got divorced. This is where Mel is like, there wasn't any infidelity in his, but she just found someone else. I was like, what does that mean? Who knows? Whatever. Then she made some joke that he asked about if she had any tattoos, and she said yes, and she made a joke about let's wait for the fantasy suite for that. And then he awkwardly like says cheers to that, and then I just wanted to crawl in a hole. I don't like that. I know they're not that much older than me, but I just can't. I can't with the flirty sex talk. I don't know why. I'm so sorry, but I good for them, right? Then they went and watched, it felt like we saw 2 full songs from Casey and the Sunshine Band, and them watching and dancing backstage. And then they walk out on stage, introduce them, and he gives her the rose in front of the whole audience. Then we hear Nicole being on a major tangent back at the mansion about being an influencer and wanting to like do a cookbook and how she has structured her Instagram now. And she tells someone that she really doesn't want to date Mel and has no intentions of dating Mel, but she basically wants to date America, meaning, she wants followers and she needs to attract America, not Mel. Then she's talking to a bunch of the girls. And I can't believe, like, in this conversation, they ITM it separately, but in the actual conversation, they all act participatory in the conversation. Like, they're not actually adding to the conversation, but they're definitely listening to her and nodding their heads and not like looking at each other or her like, are you actually saying this on camera? But she was comparing their cast to the Real Housewives cast and talking about in comparison to women on here versus like the show Real Housewives. And then she says something about last year's cast wasn't that great of looking, that were basically much hotter women than the last cast. And I actually did see a blurb that Joan made an appearance on Almost Famous podcast too about she's like not appreciating that comment very much. But like she's like no nonsense about that topic. Like, I don't think she gives a shit at all. And how many times during this episode does she say, let's like she told Mel they should jump into the pool with their clothes on because that would make great TV. And then later she's like, give me a little kiss. She goes, just for the cameras. Like, she has no inhibitions about just blatantly doing something for the sake of the show, which is kind of crazy, but also like almost funny. And I almost appreciate it. The group date is at the beach. They do this like whole photo shoot for like, I don't know, they all have to dress in different outfits, so like Debbie is wearing a wedding gown and she gets emotional because she's never had a wedding, she's never been married. And then I don't know, they all just dress in different outfits, and the photographer basically picks the person he thinks that he saw the most chemistry with, which was Cindy. So since she was the quote unquote winner, they got their own private photo shoot in which they rolled around on the sand and made out. Okay. This part, I'm actually very happy they slow-moed it, because I have a feeling that this scene in like regular motion was, and I don't use this term lightly, with this in my mind, the most cringy thing that I probably have ever seen. Two older people rolling around in the sand awkwardly with all the aches and pains that he has. He can hardly walk, much less roll around on the beach. I that had to, oh my word, I don't even like to think about what that actually looked like. Lord Almighty, they slow-mo always makes everything look better. And even in slow-mo, I literally had to look away. I could not watch. So yeah. Um, then I've never talked about this on here. And actually I just learned this not that long ago, that Mel's dad is black and his mom is white. This is wild to me because he looks as white can get. Like for real. Like he almost is like a cliche white guy. Uh, really. And so I knew this, but this is the first time they mention it at all. And it was only just like, they didn't talk about it. I think it was Cheryl or someone brought up, like, your dad's black, right? And he was like, yeah. And she said, I, have a history with Motown, or I don't know what she said. She tried to relate to it. But I would like to hear more about that. I would like to meet his parents. I want to know. I mean, I guess in mixed, with children that are mixed ethnicities, sometimes they get lighter skin, sometimes they get darker skin, but like he looks white. I just think it's crazy. I almost don't believe it. But anyway, okay. So then we have Robin that's decides she's going to tattle. Well, we think she's going to tattle on Nicole, but she basically just tattles and doesn't name anyone, which I think, like, what's the point of tattling if you're not going to like call the person out? She says some people aren't being authentic, and she says people, but really she means a person. So he kind of just like disses her on that and says, I don't think that they are. I think everybody here is authentic, and I'm just going to go with that. So basically it's just like, sorry to believe you, but move on. But Carol ends up getting the rose on this group date. Then they have a tailgate instead of a cocktail party. They play beer pong with prune juice, and I don't get this. Like, why, just because they're in their 60s, do they have to play? Why can't they play beer pong with beer or any kind of alcohol? Why does it have to be prune juice just because they're older? I just thought this was ageist, in my opinion, and stupid. This was so dumb. Then Nicole is hardcore flirting with Mel, and this is where she suggests they jump in the pool with their clothes on because it would make great TV. Okay. And then they just drop that. Okay. So then it's a rose ceremony, and the roses go to Debbie, Cindy, Cheryl, and Nicole. So Roxanne, Robin, and Jerry go home. Okay. Now we're at the third episode. I'm just flying through this. So there's 6 women left. So we find out that 3 are going to get hometowns, and that no roses are going to be given out on any of the dates, the group date or the one-on-one date, only at the rose ceremony. So we learn then the day card comes, and we learn that Cindy gets the one-on-one, but the group date is first. And it's this thing that The Bachelor loves to do, which is like one of these spiritual journey dates. And I won't say hate's a strong word. I just really don't like these dates. One, because this is just not my thing. I'm not into it. I don't really believe in it. And I think that, whatever you're into, fine. But they do so many of these, and they're always, to be honest, just boring to watch. Like, if you're into this and you want to participate in it, it's one thing, but to like watch someone doing it is not fun. And I just wish they would stop with these dates. And like, so on the group date, he took them one by one, and each of them did like this, like, little spiritual thing. So like Mel and Peg started, and they did a mud bath. You guys, I think this is where I decided that I am going to have to stop watching this show. When I saw them getting into the bath, and I saw him leaning back on the tub in that mud bath, like taking up all the room with his legs on either side of her, and sorry, I just almost threw up in my mouth. Like, just the way he was like sitting in there, just like a lump on a log. And he was like looking at her, kind of like, ugh, it gives me the EBGBs. I'm gonna stop talking about it because it was disgusting. It was gross. Uh, then Cheryl got into a cold bath with him, and watching him get in that bath and not being able to take breaths because it was, or that tub because it was so cold, and he like couldn't talk, and I, he is so cringy. I just can't. Oh, gross. I would have left the first night. I don't care, Nicole. You don't need Instagram that bad. Just go home. Oh my God. I just, ugh. Like he couldn't get his breath, and he like slipped a little bit because he can't move because he's like so arthritis stuff from football and being old, and like he couldn't hardly get down. Oh my God. I would just, okay, gave me a good laugh. But then like he says, you know what about getting in the cold water does? It gives you clarity. And I was like, what? What does that even mean? That's a saying I've never heard. Cold water really gives you clarity. And she's like, yeah, and then she ITM's like, it really did. Once I got on it and got used to it, I really gained clarity. Clarity on what? What do you gain clarity on? Like that you can see to the bottom of the bathtub? Like what the fuck? So weird and so stupid. Like, oh God. Anyway, then Nicole I forget what they did, I think like tarot cards or whatever you call them. And then she starts talking about her Instagram to Mel and that her dad does all her accounting. And I'm like, what? Wait a second. How old is your dad? Is he doing she's what, 67? I mean, I guess her dad can still do accounting at 90. Like what is happening here? And also maybe you should like have a backup accountant because I feel like what are you gonna do unless your dad lives to like 120? This was so weird to me when she said her dad does all her accounting. But then this is where I guess Mel starts like cluing in that she's not there for the right reasons, and this is where she asks for a kiss for the camera. But then that's all we see. We don't like see him really talking about it anymore. The women never talking about it again. Nothing ever happens. We know she ends up getting a road. No, she doesn't. She ends up going home. Sorry, because she said she wanted to be the Golden Bachelorette. But like it's just so fragmented. Like we're gonna create her as the villain, but we're just gonna like stick bits and pieces in here or there, not create really any kind of storyline. We're just going to give you enough that we think you're not going to like her, but actually it's like doing the reverse for me, and I like it's just so weird. It's just I don't okay. So then this shaman puts like some rocks on Carol and Mel and bangs a drum over them. Like, see, I'm sorry. This is the kind of stuff that I can't get into. And it was kind of funny though on this one too, because Mel is laying there and honestly, you guys, he looked dead because his mouth was hanging open a little bit and he was not moving and he kind of looked dead. I really think maybe he died for a second. Yeah. So but okay, so after they do the rock thing, she pulls Mel aside, Carol does, and says she just doesn't feel a net connection and he's not her guy. And to be honest, this is probably the most sensible thing that I have seen on the show so far on this season, because I think she was like, she did it the right way. Nicole's being too in your face about the whole, like, I'm not here for the right reasons, but I'm thinking maybe Carol wasn't either, but she did the right way and the subtle way where she got really far in the show. And then when it got time where she was like, okay, I really am not into this guy at all. And so I don't want a rose because I'm worried that if I go to the end, like what I'm going to look like. So I'm just going to like bug out. So bravo, Carol, bravo. So she leaves. But it made me laugh really hard because Cheryl saw this all happening and she runs back to the girls and she's like, oh my God, a black SUV just drove up and took Carol. Like they were kidnapping her. They abducted her. She's being sex trafficked. Like I'm just like, I think it might be the show, a black SUV just pulled up and took Carol. So then we get Cindy's one-on-one. They ride horseback, then they sit and talk for a long time. And her PTC is that she's been divorced for 7 years, and her husband cheated on her, and she had some hard times with that, and I don't know, whatever. And then he gives her this thing, and he's bought her a star and named it after her. Okay, and then gives her the rose. No, he doesn't give her the rose. Oh, he actually does. But so then we see that all the women get to FaceTime a loved one. Most of them, their kids. Debbie FaceTimes her sister, while Jesse talks to Mel. This was totally not interesting, and I fast forwarded pretty much through this whole segment. And then we get the rose ceremony where the hometowns go to Cindy, Peg, and Debbie. Cindy and Peg are not surprises to me. I feel fairly certain that it's going to be Cindy. If it's not, I will be shocked. But I'm also going to predict that in about 4 months. Oh, the other funny thing that Nicole said was that if it doesn't work out, which with whoever you pick, which chances are it won't. Or I'm paraphrasing that, but that's basically what she said. And I kind of thought it was funny because I kind of agree with you, Nicole, but I don't know that he will call you. However, I don't think you need him. You go do your Instagram thing, girl. But I do think it's going to be Cindy, and I just don't think they're going to last. She seems too sweet and nice and beautiful, and like she's got a lot going for her. I don't think that, I don't know. I will be shocked if they last. So yeah. So we have hometowns next week. And very likely, I'm going to podcast next week, but I'm very likely going to very quickly recap this. And then I probably will talk Love is Blind and some of these other shows again, because, there's also a lot of drama going on right now with Real Housewives of Potomac, which has actually just started. But one of the cast members and her husband just in the last few days got arrested for insurance fraud. And they were done filming the season, obviously, because it's just started airing. But it sounds like they picked up cameras again to get everyone's take on this whole thing. So that's kind of wild. So if you watch that was Wendy who got arrested for insurance, and Eddie, who has Happy Eddie, the little like weed store. Anyway, so yeah, I'm sure this weekend, I don't have much going on, so I plan to watch a lot of TV again, and we'll have probably a lot to talk about and report on. But there's lots of shows. Selling Sunset starts the last week of October on Netflix again, and Mormon Wives starts up in November. I'm a big Mayor of Kingstown fan. That starts up in November. I just saw that Southern Charm is starting up in November. That's a Bravo show. And we just have Potomac starting now, so that's going to keep going. Salt Lake City's just started Real Housewives, so I'm into that. Oh, I'm watching Special Forces as well. I got to catch up on that after having been gone. So anyway, but yes, let's go. So I'm just going to briefly talk about Love is Blind. So this season is in Denver. They have released 2 batches of shows so far, 1 through 6 and then 7 through 9. Actually, I think it's 2 shows come out tonight, 2 or 3 more, the final shows. And so I would rather have watched those by a long stretch, but I'm saving that for this weekend. I like the season. I think there's some odd couplings. There's also some odd cast people, but I think it makes good TV. I think it's way better than last season was Minneapolis, and that one was just plain boring, and there was like they had to work for drama for that one. But this one has been really good so far. Like the biggest things I'd say that I would touch on are like the most polarizing things that the internet has to say and talk about is, if you watch it, then you know what I'm talking about. But Patrick and Casey, and they ended up, he proposed to her, but as soon as the reveal happened, she basically was, both her and him were on Nick Vile's podcast, and both gave their sides of the story, which was actually really worth watching or listening to for me because it gave me a little bit more context. I like kind of feel for her because the internet's really coming at her hard, really, really hard because he's Asian. And like, as soon as she knew that too, though, because he ended up revealing that to her, but which I think is not really fair. But she like acted like, oh, no big deal. Yeah. But like literally within hours of seeing him, she like was bugging out. But instead of just saying, look, I don't really want to date you. I like, you're just not my type. Sorry. Love isn't blind. Like, what's wrong with saying that? What's wrong with saying, sorry, love is not blind? Like I mean, I just don't like your looks. So I feel like that's what this show proves and has proven over and over. But anyway, so she like really in a roundabout way tried to dump him without dumping him. The whole time she was like, we know she's breaking up with him because she's told the cameras to the side that she's just not attracted to him and she doesn't see herself ever getting there. But to him, she keeps saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. And she's like, I don't want to go to Baja. I think that where their little honeymoon part was. And he's like, well, that's fine. We just won't go there. And he's like, so let's meet up in Denver. Well, yeah, but no. And then she'd hug him and I love you again. And then when they left, she would like hug him and straddle him. And I felt so sorry for him. He had to be like so confused, like so confused. She blames just getting caught up in the show and like, I don't know, just not, I don't know. She didn't really have that good of a reason. I mean, she didn't really just admit that she wasn't attracted to him, but also kind of did. Anyway, that was a real polarizing event, an interesting event to happen and to go down. Edmund, he is polarizing. He is, gosh, I think you either love him or hate him. He's just wild. He tires me out watching him. A lot of people are saying that he appears to be on the spectrum. He was raised in like he did not have a good upbringing. He was raised in the foster care system, and so some people think it's just kind of like trauma from that. He cries at the drop of a hat. Gosh, I can't remember what's her name that he's coupled up with, but she seemed to really be endeared by him at first, but I think that by now he's getting on her last nerve, which I think it would get on my nerves too. But like, there's part of him that I kind of like though, because he's just like this. He feels like a very, very pure soul. And I think he just is who he is. And there's some people accusing him of being manipulative and using like his emotions and things to sort of, manipulate her, but I feel like that's not him. I can see that she wouldn't be able to deal, and that's fine because I probably wouldn't either, but he does seem like a super sweet guy, but he's a little polarizing. Then we have Annie and Nick. Oh Lord. It's kind of funny on the internet because like the internet is like he every not everyone, but I have seen lots of like TikToks and things of people who are like, okay, Nick, you're gay. So just like admit it. I even saw this one where this girl was watching it live reaction with her gay best friend. And he was watching it. And he was like, oh my God, dude, you're gay. Like you're totally gay. And, but he's with Annie, who is kind of, wow, I feel like she's got her own issues. I'm really confused by her. One minute she's like bubbly and laughing at every word he says, and then the next minute she's accusing him of not loving her in the correct way, and he is understandably confused. But then also we learn that a lot of people in the cast don't really like him and think that he is kind of conniving. um he does feel like he is soulless. Like he feels like when he's talking like he's a robot. Like he feels like he's AI or something. Like, I don't know, he's just kind of seems emotionless and just not real authentic. they're just an odd pairing. I don't know. I feel like there's only one couple that's going to make it to the altar and actually say yes. And I think that is Sparkle Megan, which is the stupidest nickname that you can give yourself in the history of the world. But Megan and what's his name? Can I think of anybody's names? Not Joe. Whatever, whoever way Megan's with, he's got a kid, Luca. I remember his name. Um, but they seem the most compatible, although I'm not convinced they're going to make it that far either. I can't, like, this show is so fascinating to me because all this was filmed like a full year ago. Sometimes it's even been like 2 years, but I think this one was filmed like a full year ago. So it's been a year since this show ended. And the reunion for this always is something I enjoy because a lot happens, and like I feel sorry for them kind of because they've had a lot of time. Like for the ones that don't make it, they've had a lot of time pass, so they've can completely move on with their lives. But then the show airs again, and they kind of have to go through it all again and like relive things and get mad all over again about things that they were mad at each other about. Um, but it's always a very entertaining reunion, in my opinion. It always gets pretty lively. Um, but I'm trying to think who else. Oh, there's Joe and M- Marissa. I can't remember. I can't remember anybody's names. Anyway, they also have had some odd interchanges. He was like high or drunk or something. Jordan and Megan. That's who the couple is. But Joe and Melissa. Anyway, he was so high or wasted on his ass on one episode, and it was so strange because like she was trying to like have a conversation with him and was getting freaked out by the way he was acting. And I was like, he's wasted. Why are you even bothering talking to him? Oh my. But yeah, so I'm anxious to see how the show ends, who ends up together, who ends up not together, how the reunion plays out. So I'm really enjoying it. If you're a Love is Blind fan and you were turned off by the last season, I would definitely recommend joining in. Uh, so next is Monster, the Ed Gein story. I'll be honest, I didn't know a lot about this whole like psycho serial killer, but of course he's from Wisconsin, as is Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, what is it about our state? I don't understand. But this happened back in the 50s, and apparently this all occurred even before the word like the phrase serial killer was even a thing. And plus it took place in this very, very small town way back when. So there's not, I don't think, a lot of factual information about um like the behind the scenes stuff, so to speak, like about his upbringing, because everyone's dead. His brother died, his dad died, his mom died, like so people, and even like the murder, like his, so what we did is we watched, there's a documentary, like just a regular documentary about it, and we watched that first before we watched this, because this is like a scripted show, you know, with actors. And what's his name, that was the lead in Sons of Anarchy, I always forget his name too, Chris Hammond, or I might be totally saying that wrong, but he is a good looking guy. And it's very weird that they cast like this really hot guy with his hot body as this like psycho guy. Of course, Ted Bundy was good looking, but anyway, but he plays this part really, really good. I always feel people have to get kind of like fucked up when they play parts like this. But anyway, that documentary I watched, apparently not that long ago, they released tapes that they had of their interviews with Ed Gein, like after he was arrested and everything. And he has this really kind of high pitched voice, and what's his name does that voice like perfectly. But anyway, so the death of Ed's brother and mom, apparently in real life, like no one knows for sure if Ed killed both of them, possibly. But because back then, you know, like when the brother died, Ed made up this story, but I guess there were like several suspicious things around his story, but because it was just small town and apparently to the community, Ed was just this like very low profile, soft spoken, never no one thought he would hurt a fly, kind of just like was there. People thought he was odd, but people didn't think he was like dangerous or anything. So like no one would have thought he killed anyone, you know? So they just kind of like let it go. And the brothers apparently died from asphyxiation during a brush fire, but like the show shows him murdering him and then like setting up that brush fire to make it look like he died in the brush fire. But like all the details, apparently it's well known that Ryan Murphy definitely took his liberties in this show to like what's the word, like hype it up for TV. That's not the right phrase. I'm not using the right phrase there, but to make it more interesting to watch, because there are so little factual because even in the interview they had with Ed Gein, he was clearly very disturbed, diagnosed I think with schizophrenia, but like very very messed up mentally. But basically what he did, if you haven't heard the story, is he, after his mom died, he had this very like weird relationship with his mom. His mom was super like mean and domineering and told him that women were evil. If you've seen Psycho, the original movie Psycho, the movie is based on Ed Gein. And um so not only is Psycho based on Ed Gein, but so is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Silence of the Lambs, were both all like taken or inspired by Ed Gein. But he um, tried to dig up his mom after she was died, tried to dig up her grave, and so he could extract her body out of there, but that didn't work. So instead he dug up different graves, and he would take the bodies out and he would skin them and he would dismember them and he would save bones. He would take the skin and sew things out of them. He would sew the seat of a chair. He made masks. He made clothes. He apparently made the body like a whole skin body that he like would put on. Apparently, again, like I don't know how they know if he put it on. um but like a lot of the stuff he actually would admit in these tapes that you listen to, but a lot he wouldn't. Like the movie makes it seem like he would take these corpses and like have sex with them. I'm sorry, this is gross. But he said he, in the interviews, the actual tapes, he says they asked him if he did that, and he said no because the smell was too bad. But so the parts they do know is like when they actually found him. So they think that he has a lot more murders under his belt than they even have any idea. Like apparently there's two hunters that went missing like back in that time that lived in that area. And apparently in this show they make it look like he kills them too, but those men went missing, and that the case has never been solved. So whether he killed them or not, but they think that there's possibly a lot of murders he committed. But he dug up a lot of bodies that were like in graves. But then he for sure killed two women, and he admitted to that. And the last one, it was so disgusting because in the actual documentary, um, sorry, this is real dark. It really is dark, but I'll just say, like in the documentary, what they show is this woman was like went missing, and the next morning, well, they didn't for sure know she was missing, I guess. And the next morning, her like family was like she never came home, and so they went to where she worked at this like hardware store, and there was like some broken things and like some blood, and someone knew that he had been in there. So they went out to his house to just, if nothing else, just go question him. So the door, there was like a shed, and like they called his name. They tried, he wasn't in his house. He didn't answer his door to the house. They went into the shed and they went downstairs, and like they showed the actual pictures from this. And they showed lots of actual pictures of like the chair that he made with the skin, and like the masks that he made with the skin. And like had this bowl that he took a skull and he made a bowl out of it. It was like this bowl that he used every day. But, and this is so disgusting, but when they walked down the steps, what they found was a woman. She was dead, obviously, but she was hanging by her feet with her legs spread apart, and he had split her down the middle from her vulva down to her chest, and her head was cut off. And um, but they think that she was hanging like that because he would deer hunt, and that's what you do when you hunt deer, and you kill a deer and you hang it up by its feet and then you skin it, and that's how they think, I guess, that she learned how to skin it, although they take a different avenue in the show too. Anyway, it's disgusting. It's horribly disgusting and gross. I mean, like all the stuff they found in his house that were body parts, they found women's vulvas in the freezer. And yes, you heard me right when I said vulva. Like just messed up stuff. And I will say this show, we got only 2 episodes in and there's 8. And they like definitely get creative with it. Like sometimes you watch it and you're even confused. And they're definitely taking their liberties at creating narratives as to why he is this way. Like, I don't know. They have this comic book that he apparently read that was about this Nazi woman who did terrible things to people, and including like skinning them and the Jews and things. And he was fascinated with this comic book. Like, now in the documentary, they didn't say anything about that at all. They said that he learned how to skin people from the deer, but oh God, I can't just like saying these things, but, they make it seem like that he like learned it in this comic book, which seems weird. But anyway, it's very, 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 very dark. It's 8 episodes long. We watched 2 episodes and had to like take a break because it's just, I'm shocked actually that it's 8 episodes because it doesn't seem like they have nearly enough content based on like the facts that they have. But he must have went wild with this one. I think they must really they haven't delved into his past yet. I'm sure they're going to do that. Other Ryan Murphy shows I've watched have done that. And they must also get into the making of the movies that I mentioned that he inspired, because in the second episode, they like fast forward to Alfred Hitchcock casting Anthony Perkins for this role of Norman Bates in Psycho, and how similar like the Norman Bates character is to Ed Gein and things. Like they totally get into that, which I wasn't expecting. But anyway, I mean, if you're really into true crime documentaries, um, you know, how that is like watching a train wreck, like you can't look away. I mean, it's good and it's well written and it's very well acted. But it's just so very, 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 very dark. So yeah. So we'll see about how long it takes me to finish that. Then the third one, I guess I'm going to talk about, and I won't really get into it a lot because, let's see, how long am I going? I'm about an hour here. So is, Allie convinced me to start watching Gilmore Girls. So while we talked a little bit about this on our podcast, but she's been like trying to convince me to watch it for like a long time. And back when it was actually on TV, I didn't even watch it then. But so I think that was early 2000s when it was on. But she finally convinced me. We started watching it like the first night of our vacation. And so we watched like 3 episodes every night. So we got all the way through the first season and like halfway through the second season. And I'm hooked. I'm totally hooked. If you watch Gilmore Girls, a few of my takes from it so far, and again, I'm only a season and a half into it, are first, I love it. I love the dynamic between Rory and Lorelai. Of course, I think that's what draws everyone to the show. Their banter and Lorelai's humor and their humor together, I love. I think it's so funny and cute and just endearing. Um, I I really I like Dean better now, but when Dean and Rory first broke up, I was glad because I thought Dean was a total ass for getting pissed at her for not saying I love you back. They only dated for 3 months. I was like, what a dick. So I was mad at that, but they're back together now, but I think she's going to be getting with, uh, what's his name? Why can't Luke's nephew. Anyway, it's the dad from it's the dad from it's the dad from damn it, what is that show? You know, the show with the triplets. It ends with us. It's us. It's only us. Whatever. Anyway, it was him when he was young. Like the dad from when they wow, can I not speak? It's the dad from when they flash back and Mandy Moore's the mom. You know, what is that show called? Anyway, that dad is the kid on this thing. And I barely could recognize. They're going to say something to each other and then they don't. Like, please, Allie won't give me any hints. I have to believe that they're going to end up together when the show is over. Like, please help them end up together. They have to. They are so cute together. I love Luke. Love him. But so far, this plot hole that occurred pisses me off so bad, and it just annoys the hell out of me, is the fact that when Lorelai called off the wedding with her and Max, like, we had no context to her even telling him that the engagement was broken off. She was telling everyone else. She just like goes into Rory's room and is like, the wedding's off. Let's go on a road trip. And she was just like, what? And she's like, we just have to go. So they go. They spend like 2 episodes on the road trip. And she calls what's her friend name? Melissa McCarthy's I can't remember freaking anybody's names. Suki calls her, tells her the whole town knows when she returns that the wedding's off. But they show zero conversation between her and Max. Did she call him and break it off? Did they actually meet up? Did she they were about to get married. They were a week, right? It was the next day. No, the wedding was in a week and she just leaves and they don't address it. They just plot hole it. Rory sees Max at school. Rory has an awkward, they talk and she has to interview him for the paper and some damn thing. And they kind of talk a little bit about it. But do Lorelai and Max have a conversation that we see? Allie swears it's still coming, but I'm like, well, now it's too late. Now by this time in the show, it's like in their time, it's like 3 months later. I don't want to see a conversation 3 months later. I want to see what happened. Did she just call him and say, I can't do this? I want to know. They didn't. Oh, so mad they didn't address that. It just really annoyed the shit out of me. But anyway, I am hooked on that show now too. So, there you go. That's what I watched in the past week, and now I have lots on my agenda to watch this weekend because I missed all my shows last week when we were on vacation. So I'll have a lot to talk about next week too. But thanks everyone, as usual, for joining me. I really encourage you to go watch the YouTube. I'm putting every episode on YouTube now, and got my TikTok. I've got my Instagram, Spotify, Apple. Go like, subscribe, rate, review. Please do any of the things that will help me sort of get this podcast on its feet, just off to the races. I would love it. So, anyway, thanks again for listening. Be calm, be strong, be kind, be grateful. Bye.